So, here we are, the finals of the 6th Starbow tournament run by ESL Play. I'm Madals, thank you all for tuning in. It's a little bit of ZVT going to be ending out the night, and well, spawning in the bottom right hand position as the green Terran player. It is AniQe. AniQe, I reckon. And in the top left, the blue Zerg, coldfront. This is where things could be getting all very exciting. What's on the line? I hear you scream. Well, pride, honor, the chance to say that you won a Starbow tournament. And that's about it, unfortunately, because for the moment, it is all just for fun. There aren't any prizes, but if ESL keep getting good interest from Starbow tournaments, they have promised me that they will add in some prize funds, so you should definitely jump to that because it'll be cool times. Now, if you are watching on stream, thank you very much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the casting this evening, I'd be very grateful if you would follow the channel. If you've missed any games this evening, all the VODs will go up to youtube.com/Madals91. They should be up a couple of hours after the broadcast. For the moment, coldfront is scanning nice and early. He's opening the same way as he did previously. Up. And, well, should be getting gas fairly soon. Meanwhile, we've got new strategy coming out from Terran players up against Zerg at the moment. Going down for a command center first. This is more greedy. We should see a barracks follow this up fairly soon. I think the most likely response after a command center first, unlike in StarCraft 2, should be multiple barracks just to get into a bit more of a defensive position. I think that likely to be essential. I could be proven wrong, however, if a gas is started fairly soon, but I'm sure just due to the way this works, more barracks should come down. So there we go. As I did mention in the semi-finals, Terran is actually the race that I've seen the least of in Starbow, so therefore I'm not 100% worked out, or probably even about 70% worked out in all the strategies and different openings and the way you should do certain things, but I'm trying to catch up with that. Zerg I'm a bit more worked out with, and the big things that Zerg players are going to be looking for are some Mutalisks at some point, because hey, Mutalisks, they're good units, especially with the clumping and things like that. They can be very powerful, and it can be challenging for Terran players to try and stop them. The other thing is lurkers in the later game. Lurkers and defilers, especially against the Terran player who's going for infantry, that's really the go-to build. The defilers for the Dark Swarm, just to obviously block any range damage coming in, and the lurkers just to dish it all out. So those are really where we could be seeing all of this kind of rooting down in terms of a mid and late game strategy. But this is early days, and in Starbow, aggression early on is very common. Getting some damage done, getting constant aggression through, always really solid. So for the moment, not too much coming out on the aggressive front. The first gas getting taken now by coldfront, and also by AniQe. AniQe is just keeping a good little eye on just everything going on. Got a single SCV scout across the map nice and early on, so knows what's coming, knows that should be pretty safe for the moment. And, well, other than that, there's not really too much to talk about at this stage. Both players being relatively passive. Do you have the first tech lab? This is probably going to be for stim. Could also be for stabilizing barrels. That's the upgrade that gives Marines increased range. But stim, I think, is the better option to take earlier on, just because it is so solid. And it looks like AniQe is agreeing with that for the moment. One lone Zergling, going to try and make his way through, just to get a little scout out. Sees the command centers up, will die for the trouble. Dies in a horrifically painful way. Meanwhile, over at the Zerg player side, just one spine crawler coming down to play it safe and starting up metabolic boost, and also getting a very early lair. This is something the coldfront did against Hyder last game, and that's usually for a very early spire. Although it's not going to be as effective, since we see AniQe has got a decent amount of Marines getting pumped out, a decent number of medics, and shouldn't be too concerned with dealing with Mutalisks due to that, especially in low numbers. So something the coldfront is going to have to try and play a little bit differently. We've got the double orbital command now finishing up. This is slightly different to what we see in StarCraft 2 for anyone who hasn't seen, obviously, Starbow. For a start, they've got Overcharge, which is like a chrono boost for production facilities. Doubles the production of barracks, twice as fast, and then actually just 50% for factories and starports. Also got cooldown SCVs, that's permanent, whereas Mule is obviously only a temporary boost. And other than that, everything looking quite nice and happy. So, one Zergling, seeing this push moving out, 2 fire bats in the mix, very effective up against Lings, and that's why we're seeing some emergency spine crawlers get thrown down here by coldfront. He's adding in a macro hatch too, pretty much essential since you can only have 3 lava at a time, but still the push coming on forward. Just chipping away at any units they can find. The Spire is not yet completed, so this is the point at which coldfront is most vulnerable. With 3 medics in the mix, decent amount of healing potential coming down. The fire bats, though, really have to be the big damage dealers. Coldfront going to be coming for a little bit of a counter-attack, but the ward-off is complete, adding a couple of marines and a medic sitting there, and this shouldn't be able to actually get through. So these are units now that aren't achieving anything for Coldfront. The 3 spines at the front are going to have their work cut out, but it should be enough to hold off this army. Just because it's quite a tight choke, these 3 spines can dish out a fair amount of damage very quickly. Starport coming down, barrel stabilizers also in production, so that increases the range of these marines, going to really help against the Mutalisks. The Spire hasn't yet been seen, no sweeper scans being utilized for the moment. A 3rd queen being added in, of course you can't preemptively build that since you can only have 1 queen per hatchery. That's really just so you can get some good injects going. You can actually inject off this 2nd queen, relatively alright. It would work as long as you're not spending too much else. One thing Coldfront hasn't really been doing much of is getting creep spread down. That's one thing I would like to see. Meanwhile, over at AniQe's side, we do have the fusion core and the reactor coming down onto this starport. Interesting, the combination of the fusion core and the reactor. Generally you see the fusion core down to get science vessels down, which does therefore require you to have a tech lab on that starport. The science vessels good for detection of the lurkers and also for the irradiate up against clumps of Mutalisks. Mutalisks coming across the map now, but they're going to be met by some marines. Get forced back for the moment, not going to get much damage done for the time being. Instead, the Mutalisks just arching around, going to try and pick up these SCVs constructing missile turrets. Going to be able to get 3 at least. That's a nice little bit of damage. May try and even stop that. A scan being used just to see exactly what's there. But yeah, grounding vision of the high ground is really all that's beneficial from getting down that scan, because the Mutalisk otherwise can just come and hide up on these high ground areas, which would make it very challenging to be able to deal with them. For the moment though, we do just have Coldfront pumping out a decent number of mutas. Already that count is sitting up at 12, so it's not astronomically high. The Marines doing a nice work of picking up some of these mutas and suddenly getting a lot more of them very low on HP, and that's something that really Coldfront has to be very careful with, because if those Mutalisks take damage, it sticks. It's not like in Heart of the Swarm, where if they take damage, they heal back up 1 health a second. Instead, it's there forevermore, and that's not what you really want. Irradiate is now being researched. It looks like that reactor was a bit of a misstep as we see the starport moved off it and nothing else coming down as of yet. These Mutalisks taking quite a bit of damage now. A firebat will die, but a firebat for a couple of Mutalisks is certainly what you're going to be looking at doing. All in all, not too much else going on for the moment. Just these Mutalisks trying to find any damage they can get done. Should be able to get that supply depot. Always nice. Supply blocking the Terran player momentarily. AniQe just having to be a little bit careful with all the movement patterns and not overextending with the Marines. Decent number of Marines set up in the main base, as well as 2 missile turrets being added on. But against a flock of mutas this size, to be honest, missile turrets aren't the greatest thing. Just because of the stacking mechanic can come in from the side and take them down quite easily. But Marines still being very effective. No upgrades for those Marines as of yet. +1 is yet to be completed. Siege tech coming down though, so we're going to be adding some tanks in. Tanks, of course, essential to dealing with lots of those Zerglings. The science vessel also now out. Irradiate completed. Going to allow that science vessel to deal with the Mutalisks if they do clump up too much. Handful of Marines engaging up against these Mutalisks here. We can see some good damage being done. The firebat able to take out a good number of the Zerglings, but there's just too much Zerg for the moment, so not too much damage done for the moment. All in all, nothing really too detrimental happening on either side as of yet. Worker kill count 6 killed for Coldfront, but that's really it. The worker count near identical. Other than that, this is all looking as a very passive game for the moment. Even though we've seen lots of Muta action, nothing too terrible has happened. 19 Mutalisks though is a fair few, and they're just going to be trying to poke through. As you can see, they can take out a missile type very quickly, especially with that +1 flyer attack upgrade. 3rd base up and running for Coldfront. No third command center is done at the moment for AniQe. Always nice times. Got to be looking to just float that down towards the 3rd base sometime soon, but needs to be careful because of its vulnerability to the Mutalisks if they are still remaining active on the map. Baneling's now morphing in. That's going to really help against all of basically the infantry down. More of a traditional response, whereas we're not seeing the Hydrogen as of yet to go up into Lurkers, which is one response that many Terran players have looked to use. The tank still sitting there, still just keeping a good little watchful eye. One Mutalisk will split in half. I'm not quite sure how Marines literally just shot that Mutalisk in half. That seems painful. But still, one Mutalisk going down for nothing, not ideal. In come these medics. This small little push from AniQe, trying to make its way forward, trying to find a nice way to go through this. Well, Science Vessel moving forward first, just to spot anything, and an Irradiate went down on these Mutalisks. It would be devastating. Coldfront would have to split out the Irradiated Muta so fast. He's got enough energy for one Irradiate at the moment, still 30 off to get a second. Baneling's getting focused down first. You've got to be so careful with these Banelings. The detonations could be huge. Tank getting surrounded by those Zerglings. The Baneling's coming through. There's the Irradiate, though. That is the one that they were looking for. The Irradiate also hits the ground unit, so a lot of those Banelings getting taken out too. Good damage being done. The Mutalisk trying to get split as fast as possible. There's so many of them now on red health, and that is really what AniQe was looking for. The Science Vessel managing to escape. 10 energy off being able to do another Irradiate, but should be able to get away safely. Mutalisks have spotted it. It's going to be so close. If one Irradiate comes down on these Mutas, it could be devastating. 2 more energy. The Medivacs... the Marines coming in after that. Second Science Vessel up now 2. This is all getting so incredibly tense. Lurker Den is now being produced, and this is what Coldfront desperately needs. Because a couple of Lurkers just add in some more splash, some more consistent splash, which is allowing us to take out the infantry a little bit easier. Third base getting taken, and this really is important. One Zergling, though, gonna scout it out here for Coldfront. That may signal the Mutalisks arching in from the top of the natural base, trying to take out these missile turrets, which are a little bit vulnerable. Gotta be very careful, though. Those Science Vessels taking some damage. 2 go down, and the Radiate is gonna be used. But so many of these Mutalisks now taking significant amounts of damage. Trying to chase them down. Lots of them barely alive, as we can see. Just a couple of lives sitting on each one. Not much at all. Gotta be so careful with everything that's coming down. So yeah, this is where we need to be keeping a very, very close eye on everything that happens. Those Science Vessels going down is a lot of resources lost. And, well, still, we've got to keep a close eye on everything else coming out. No Warlock coming down here. Lurkers morphing in, as well as the Viper Nest coming out. Viper Nest, of course, essential to get that hive instead of the infestation, but that allowed Defilers to start coming through. As I mentioned earlier, those Defilers with Dark Swarm, essential to reduce the range damage over an area. Zerglings streaming through. A couple of Banelings in the mix as well. Not too much to worry about, though. There's a decent amount of forces here at the moment. The Mutalisks, though, dealing some great damage, managing to take out a fair few SCVs as they come through. Now heading up towards the main. Remember, though, these Mutalisks very low on health. There's a decent number of missile turrets here, but the Mutas, with that +1 attack, should be able to do a decent amount of damage, but they're flying straight over. The double fusion core making an appearance here. A bit of a misplay by AniQe, which I didn't notice earlier, but nice little Radiate comes down. The Mutalisks taking a whole heap of damage. Coldfront having to back away. Can't afford to really split those at the moment while trying to retreat. So only 3 Mutalisks remain. That was a good amount of damage. We do, though, have numerized Carapace coming down. 10 Scourge, 2 Scourge. Banelings of the Sky. Going to be able to take down these Science Vessels in a couple of kamikaze runs. That's really the aim of those. Mutalisks coming back through, trying to focus down this fusion core. As we can see, not really too much else of the threat. The missile turret dealing some really good damage. One Mutalisk probably not going to be able to take it out, and therefore the final 3 Mutas are getting taken out. Everything else looking fairly level for the most part. AniQe is slightly up in supply, but the Lurkers can quickly mix that up. A couple of Zerglings going to come streaming in towards the natural base, acting as a distraction as a push heads towards the third. Banelings rolling up towards that bunker, gets a little bit of damage down. Meanwhile, a Firebat dealing some good damage, but it's not going to be enough. Reinforcements getting picked off. A big push coming across the map by the Terran player. The Warlock to the third has been eradicated, and that means Coldfront can come in and start picking away at the SCVs there. Defensively, though, the Radiate being used on these Lurkers, sitting in a nice spot. That Irradiate just dealing a fair little bit of damage. Won't kill a Lurker, one Irradiate, but still granting detection of it. The Scourge, though, coming straight in, sniping off that Science Vessel. But unburrowing the Lurkers means that the tanks get a couple of shots off. Tanks deal a huge amount of damage when they're sieged. I believe it's 70 per hit, so that's very substantial. A couple more Hydras coming in order to morph into Lurkers. That one Lurker surviving, goodness knows how. Still, though, forward comes a couple more pushes, and this all while we do have a Zergling counterattack heading into the natural base, so it's not too critical, it's not too devastating, but a few nice pickups coming down by the Zerglings nonetheless. These SCVs actually getting taken down consistently. This really isn't what you want. The Marines not helping out their buddies, and that's because most of AniQe's attention right now is sitting on trying to take out the 4th base of the Zerg player. That Zergling still going to town. One lone Zergling racking up so many kills. The 4th base of coldfront looking to be taken out fairly quick. Lurkers coming in from behind, but they burrowed a little late. The science vessel, of course, granting vision, using that neural jammer, just preventing 50% of the damage coming through from those burrowed units. And with the 4th going down, things looking a bit tough for coldfront. He's adding in more lurkers. He's adding in consume for those defilers so they can basically destroy friendly units to get more energy. But needs to start using those dark clouds, dark swarms rather. So essential that it comes in just to block any range damage over an area. It's kind of like a reverse of blinding cloud. The Orbit Command though, coming to land here. Just going to be trying to get that 3rd base up and running yet again. Needs that additional income to be making good progress. Across the ground, 2 tanks just retreating back away, potentially exposed to a little bit of Zergling play, but nothing really threatening for the moment. Another 2 science vessels being produced from the double Tech Lab starports, and that's adding into an already decent number of science vessels. There's 6 there. There's a lot of irradiates available. It also means they're less susceptible to being taken out by Scourge. 2 Scourge can kill a science vessel, and they do splash damage too. Lurkers coming in now, but they're moving so far forward. These Marines should be able to get a good amount of damage on. So many Lurkers being sacrificed. Not what coldfront would have wanted. A big misstep there, and a huge amount of damage is going to be achieved. Nice little irradiate on that Defiler. Of course, the Defiler doesn't have enough health to survive that. The Lurkers also getting irradiated very quickly. They're going to go down. Nice control, and suddenly these bases up to the top right-hand side of the map taking a good amount of damage. Lurkers though and Zerglings made it into the 3rd base of AniQe. That means SCV's dying income halted. In terms of army supply, 82 to 75 in favour of AniQe for the moment. He moves up, tries to take down a couple more hatcheries, leaving the science vessels and tanks in case anything tries to make a move. The hatch is going to go down. I'm not sure if the one up to the top right has been seen. It has, so therefore that's going to get taken out. But a counter-attack still coming in. We've got way more Zerglings making their way into the natural base. Going to be trying to take that down. The SCV count currently for the Terran player down to just 27, but that's going to plummet momentarily as those Zerglings are uncontested in the damage they're doing. Still, so many losses being taken. There's a couple of Marauders and a few Marines and a medic there, just trying to block up these SCVs so they can't make an easy way through, but still, good amount of damage being done. And these reinforcements are getting taken down fairly fast. The upgrades, 2-2 for these Zerglings. They hit pretty hard and they take out reinforcements as they make progress. Coldfront is now up by about 30 supply. He's still got these science vessels, getting some good irradiates down, getting them on the Defilers with only 80 health. Radiate deals 120. There's those Dark Swarms, just stopping any range damage from being done to anything in there, allowing the Lurkers somewhat of safety. With the irradiates dealing enough damage, Nerve Jammer also coming in, reducing damage done from anything there. Good control being shown at the moment by coldfront and AniQe. They're both battling out. AniQe knows that this is it. GG well played as the Scourge destroy the science vessels, and coldfront is going to take map number 1 in this best of 3.